Welcome to another episode of the 412 Podcast, brought to you by FBC Mustang in Mustang, Oklahoma. My name is Jeremy, I'm the associate pastor and your host for this podcast. We're going to have another great episode. If you ever have any questions or want to know what's going on at First Baptist in Mustang, please go to fbcmustang.org. Today we've got a whole group of guys on the show. We have John Brewer, Alex Plain, and Lawson Kraut, who are all just recently back from a trip to India. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
happy to be here.
We're glad you're here. So just a little bit of introduction. If you'll just introduce yourselves. John, why don't you get us started?
Sure. John Brewer, the worship pastor here at First Baptist Mustang.
Alex Plain, attendant.
Lawson Kraut, the missions ministry leader here at First Baptist Mustang.
Very good. And that's a new role for you, right?
It is a new role. I'll be doing I'll be the point person for all of our local and international mission partners. I'll be looking for new opportunities for mission trips for our church and just generally working with our partners to see how we can better serve them and support them. So
that's excellent. Well, I'm excited about that. Congrats on the new role, and looking forward to how the Lord will be working through that. So, guys, how was the trip to India?
It was great for me. It was my first time to go, and I can't speak for these other guys. How many times have you gone, Alex?
This was my third trip.
Third trip.
My second.
Okay. So yeah, this is my first trip, and was really impressed with the overall structure. I felt like it was very meaningful and intentional and productive.
Yeah.
So I know we'll get into the details, I'm assuming,
Yep.
kind of what the trip looked like, but I don't think it could have gone any better from a logistical standpoint.
That's great. So a few ground rules to the podcast. There are names that aren't being mentioned and locations not being mentioned. So we'll talk pretty in general about some things. But tell me, how did we get connected with India? How did we first start serving in India? Where did this relationship come from?
I believe Kent had a connection to our partner there.
Okay.
And I know Kevin Godin and I went on the first trip with Wayne and just got to know them, and our partnership began from there back in 2017.
Okay. So for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be Kent Jaggers, who's now the senior pastor at FBC Clinton, and Kevin Godin, who is serving as a church planter in northern Denver area, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And Wayne, he mentioned, was supposed to be on this trip with us.
Oh, that's right.
But on the day of our departure,
Mm-hmm.
we had an ice storm that had rolled in. He slipped on his driveway loading his luggage and fell and broke his ankle in 2 places, had to have surgery, which I think was just a really elaborate plan to not have to spend a whole week with Alex.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but he's doing a lot better.
Well, good.
Yeah,
Well, good.
he's a stud around here and goes on tons of mission trips. So.
Yeah, that he does, and that he is. So, well, very good. Okay, so there's just 3 of you on the trip. Tell me, what kind of work are you doing while you're over there?
Most of it, I think, is we're there to support, some of the local pastors that the group that we're there working with has relationships with.
Yeah.
And so they've kind of prepared each day several locations with
Mm-hmm.
different groups of people,
Okay.
ranging from 4 to 20, and you're there with a translator, and who's this time was also doubling as a driver.
Okay.
And so they know how to drive a manual
Okay.
on the wrong side of the road
Okay.
with the steering wheel on the wrong side of the car. And they get us.
All traffic rules
Yeah.
are suggestions.
Yep. Yeah.
So each morning we get up, we team up with the driver, and they take us to wherever those locations are prepared. And then
Okay.
we're gone pretty much from 7 a.m. to maybe 9, 10 p.m., something like that.
And you have the same driver each day?
Mm-mm.
No.
We rotate
Different.
around to try to get as much crossover with different
They were
personalities
the
and
same
stuff.
drivers for us the whole week, but we each switched around.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, and I would say our objective was really twofold. To the company that we were partnering with, the ministry we were partnering with, had created a discipleship app that
Okay.
can be used to help train and grow new believers, and even be used evangelistically for unbelievers.
Okay.
To teach them the basics of the Bible in the absence of strong church leadership and a lot of resources. So we
Right.
would go and train local pastors and people who were a part of their house churches how to use this app and how
Okay.
to find it. And then we ended our trip with 2 days of training for these local pastors where we were able to go deeper with them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So doing some using the app, doing some basic kind of introduction to the gospel, what Christianity is, but then also going a little bit deeper. What kind of stuff are you teaching the pastors?
So we began on Thursday, and they're trying to teach them healthy church leadership, healthy church doctrine, and what was the third one? Anyways,
Like vision and just for
vision.
your church congregation. Yeah.
keep them accountable in the things that they're working on. And so the first day we went through just the doctrine of salvation,
Mhm.
walked through that just so they have a good understanding, giving them the basics that they can go back to and
Right.
build on from there. So
Okay, that's great.
yeah.
So is it so help our listeners understand kind of what is the setting that you're in? So let's start kind of with the city and kind of the place that you're at. Is it like the stereotypical what you see on TV about crowded India streets and places like that, or is there poverty there? Kind of what's going on as you get there and get to the area you're serving in?
So we stayed in a bigger city, and there's a lot of traffic, a lot of people, like you would expect.
Yeah.
Each day we would leave in the morning and drive about an hour and a half out of town
Okay.
and meet with our drivers, and then we would go out even further from there. There were 4 of us, and we would just go to all kinds of different places.
Okay.
Very small villages,
Yeah.
little small bumpy deconstructed roads. And so you're in a lot of different kinds of places.
Okay.
Very, very poor.
Okay.
This is a lot of farming goes on there. So there's people who own the farms that have bigger houses.
Mhm.
There's people who work on the farms or don't work at all and have very little. So you're looking at self-made structures like tents and things that they can live in, all the way to like a normal
Okay.
house, not necessarily like we'd have here, but
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of diversity then, and kind of
Mhm.
scenery and kind of what you're seeing. The churches that you're going to, what are they like?
They're really just like, most of the time, they're glorified homes. I mean,
Okay.
that's what they are. They're like home churches.
Okay.
And so typically, like if we were to go to meet with 3 or 4 churches in a day, that would be going to 3 or 4 locations. It's a home with maybe a bigger, a small to medium sized room where you could have kind of 20 people sit,
Yeah.
on the ground, cross-legged.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes either these pastors or congregants will donate like a room of their house to be designated for the meeting space for that
Okay.
local congregation. So it's wherever they can find a space.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So, did you get to like preach in the churches? Were you with the church members themselves a lot, or were you just specifically with those pastors? Kind of what kind of interactions were you having?
Yeah, once we landed in our home base city, that next morning was Sunday morning, and so
Okay.
we were able to go to 4 different churches
Okay.
because in the absence of Wayne, the local partners there used one of their interns, so to speak, who's on the ground to serve in Wayne's place. So
Okay.
we each went to 4 different churches around that area, and we were tasked with preaching through a specific passage in Luke,
Mm-hmm.
and then walking through a basic evangelism / gospel sharing tool
Yeah.
so that we could train their congregants how they can effectively, hopefully, share the gospel with their peers,
Yeah.
because we're in a place that's less than 2% Christian, it's unreached, unengaged, and so there's lots of gospel conversations to be had
Right.
with friends and family, and they're in an area where to leave their main religion is pretty costly, and
Yeah.
so it can create a lot of tension between family and those that are around. So lots of conversations to be had, so we tried to walk them through that. But those church services were lasting 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
When you include music and time of teaching and testimonies, and so it's a pretty big chunk of your day with that group.
And you're doing all of this through translators, both what you're hearing and what you're saying.
Not always what we're hearing, but yes, what we're saying. There's a good amount of the time where we just nod and smile and trust that the Lord is doing a work.
Yeah.
But, occasionally the translators would fill us in on what's taking place.
Okay.
But may not be translating the whole time, just so we're not a distraction.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so you mentioned that as people are leaving their faith, coming to Christianity, this is not what you think of in the States. It's not what you think of, sharing the gospel with a family member and everyone's necessarily excited for them. You got grandparents come to the baptism and that whole thing. This is a very different setting. So speak a little bit to that. Kind of tell us a little bit about what is your typical person who's living in India who converts to Christianity. What are they going through?
So I had a couple experiences. We went to one group of families that have lived basically on some land that the city has allowed them to live on in their own structures they've made out of wooden posts and tarps.
Yeah.
And they've lived there for 30 years. They're the only believers in their village, and recently the community has told them they either need to forsake Jesus or leave town. They're not going to allow them to stay there as believers anymore.
Right.
The day before that, I met with a woman whose husband has basically been abusing her since she came to faith, and she was very nervous to download the app onto her phone that we were teaching them through, because he checks through her phone and tries to keep her from anything related to Christianity. So I think that's really eye-opening. That's not something we deal with here at all, and
right.
it shows you the true cost of Christianity.
Yeah. So Lawson and Alex, you both have been multiple times. How did this trip compare to previous trips that you've been on?
So I was able to go in 2019 and then 20 right before COVID. We literally passed it in the airport on the way out of country. And those were in a slightly different area, several, probably like 5-6 hour drive from where we were this time.
Okay.
A little bit more rural, and definitely had a different feel to it. This time we were incorporating the app, and this time in particular, I met a young woman at one of the homes that we were at, like a home church, and she was right about the same, age, and just I could see with her confidence and interaction level and stuff, she really reminded me of a daughter that I have, Nora, who's the same age, 10, 11, right around there. And it really struck me this time that I felt very encouraged after leaving country, that it wasn't just an overwhelming kind of bottomless pit of like, where are we going with this, or and this, I really felt like it was an opportunity for us to get and meet some younger people, especially with the technology, for some deep soil, rich soil that can be used to further the kingdom. So it was cool. Yeah,
because how many people are in the country of India?
1.4 billion. Of course, average.
Yeah,
it just went up again.
Well, it's just one of those like reminders of like the work doesn't end. It's not like you send a group for a week and then we've knocked this area out, so now we go to the next one.
Check it off the box.
Yeah, this is it involves a lot of labor, and it's going to take a lot of time to accomplish seeing that country come to know Christ. It's long lasting. It's a long work.
One big difference in this trip versus the last trip was the app. And so the app has 60 different Bible lessons, and they can play it in their own language. A lot of them can't read, so they can press play and listen to it. It reads them a passage of Scripture and then explains a little bit of what it means and some application. Okay. So in the past, we would go in and teach 1 or 2 lessons from the Bible in these homes, and then that would be our interaction with them. We wouldn't leave them with much. We would have to rely on the local pastor to say, okay, they're going to follow up with them. We hope. We don't know. In this case, when we leave them with the app, they have a tool to disciple themselves and learn the scriptures and show it to their friends. And so I felt more comfortable leaving them behind with that, where even if no one follows up, which I think they will, but even if no one follows up, they have their own tools to grow.
Right. What kind of access to the Bible do they have?
They have the Bible in their own language. They have an app, and the app we worked with had a link to a Bible in their own language.
Okay, so probably the average person would probably be surprised that they all have smartphones that have apps on them. Is that pretty commonplace? Does everyone have a smartphone there?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of people.
Usually one per family. Not necessarily every person, but usually they had one per family.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So obviously technology is a huge tool while you're there. And obviously, like, that's the way we communicate with people there now and keep up with what's going on there, how we plan the trip and the whole thing. Technology is critical. Okay. So for the average person in the church that wants to potentially be involved with India missions on any level, Lawson, as our ministry leader, speak to a little bit, how does the average person get involved with India missions?
So first, come talk to me and tell me you want to go.
Okay.
But I think most people in our church would be able to do a lot of what we did on the trip.
Mm-hmm.
You would need to be prepared for some uncomfortable situations, and you're on your own pretty much a lot of the day.
Yeah.
Not by yourself, but you're not with the people you came on the trip with. You're with your translator and a pastor, and you're off all day by yourself. So I think if you have the confidence to do that, you could come on this trip. We also do an element of pastoral training at the end of the week that would need to be taught by people who are more experienced in teaching. So there's different levels of who can go on the trip. Maybe you participate during the week and not as much during the pastoral training. So.
Yeah.
I would also say and just encourage our listeners too that while we want as many people as can go, to go out on these foreign mission trips, but some people are just not physically able to do that, or they're in a stage of life where that's very, very difficult. But one of the unique privileges of being a part of this church is that there is a rich support for people who are going on the mission trip, specifically financially. And so giving to the local church here and doing that faithfully helps support these trips and allow it to be more affordable for people that go.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage those that are giving, or if you're not giving, this is not a pitch just to get your money. It's a pitch to be faithful to what God has called us to do. And one of the ways you can support the Great Commission is by giving towards that, or finding someone who's going on a trip and help support them. Because even with the cost of that the church is providing, it's still a financial investment.
Yeah.
And so those families or those people that are going can use that. And then also obviously the prayers as well.
Yeah.
We don't ever want to minimize those. So just a couple of additional thoughts to the things that Lawson already mentioned.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's good. So you travel there. You fly the whole time?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many hours?
I think 1,760. On our way, at least the way there was a little bit quicker.
Okay.
Because of whatever that magic thing is, that it's faster one way than it is the other. Jet streams and wind speeds.
Tailwind.
Okay. But on the way back, once we got to the airport in our main city where we were staying, from then until the time we made it back to Oklahoma City was a total of 43 hours.
Wow.
So that was nonstop traveling at that point, or sitting at an airport, or waiting on your next ride to an airport.
My goodness, that's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Okay, so anything else you want to add about the trip? Something you enjoyed, something you didn't enjoy, something funny? Anything else about the trip we haven't asked?
Alex, tell them about your fire brethren across the world.
Yeah, so just ended up being it was like a block maybe just down the street from the base hotel that we were operating out of. Each day we'd come home and we'd pass this little fire station, and I thought, man, I would really like to walk down there and check them out. And so the last day we had maybe like 2 or 3 hours before we were actually checking out of our hotel and then debriefing with our partner there and leaving, getting ready to leave the country.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the time. So I went down there and, just introduced myself and showed him some pictures to prove that, like, I was who I said I was, and I kind of knew what I was talking about,
right.
And I was a firefighter, and they were like, oh, and so they took me right in and sat me down and took me on a tour of the place and showed me all their equipment and fed me. They gave me tea and snacks, and they were really awesome. So there were several of them there that spoke, enough English that we could definitely carry on a conversation and talk about stuff. And so it was a lot of fun. For me, it was really a highlight. I got to sneak in a blessing for the food and pray in Jesus' name, and they were like, "Oh, that's cool." And of course, they had idols around and pictures of them. So even in their fire rig, they had a little picture hanging in between the 2 front seats and stuff. And it's just everywhere over there. So
one of those guys looked like Saddam Hussein.
Oh yeah, body double.
We're pretty sure that maybe they faked his death, and he's a firefighter in India now.
Yeah, it's so funny. So here we have more of a rank structure. It's not necessarily just your time on the job, and so there it's a little bit different where they really revered this guy, and he looked like it, but I mean he'd been there for like 35 years or something, and I don't think he was a young man when he started. And so, but he looked like Saddam, and I have a couple of pictures of him. It's pretty funny. As soon as I zoom in and show anybody the picture, that's the first thing they say. It's like, oh, it's him.
Yep. How funny.
Yep.
One thing that I had asked our missionary partner there was, what is it about having a team that is beneficial to you?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes when you go on a trip, they just have you do things that their volunteers would normally do anyways, and they just take a break. But he told us specifically that we were able to accomplish, by God's grace, about 4 months of work of what it would have taken his team to do. And so that was cool to see. And I think, Lawson, you've pulled up some, you want to read them? Or there's some stats of just kind of what we were able to see the Lord do through our efforts that week.
Yep. So in the 4 days we were there, there were 4 of us on the ground. We went to 26 villages, visited 49 different homes, shared the gospel with 332 people, and had 105 people download the app to their phone.
That's incredible. So that's Bible education you've put in those people's hands. Mm-hmm. That's a gospel that people have been exposed to. That's incredible work.
And I love that they'll come. They have a plan to come back and follow up. It's not like we go parachute in and then leave and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
And I think for me, just kind of answer your question before we close it. For me, it was such a reminder as I was able to worship with these believers that the Lord truly is calling people from every nation, tribe, and tongue.
Yeah.
And it's our job to be a part of that work, but it is his job to be faithful to complete it.
Right.
We just want to be found faithful to do what he's asked us to do and to go. But we can go in confidence because he's going to build his church, and he's going to gather his bride together. Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing to be a part of.
That's great. Amen. Well, can we finish with a lightning round?
Let's do it. I love lightning round.
Okay.
This is where the editor gets his work in.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start with Lost. We'll just go. Just give me the first thing that pops in your head. What is the best way to pass time on the plane?
Watch a movie.
Yes, pretend like you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, the best way is to sleep, but that's pretty unattainable. But if you can pull that off, that is the best way to pass time.
Were there people asleep on the plane?
The whole Lawson had a girl next to him. She was passed out for like 10 hours. We wanted whatever she had. I don't know what prescription she got.
All right.
But
okay, what was your favorite thing you saw while you were in India?
The favorite thing that I saw, I mean, other than just for me, it was just the people that were specifically a part of this specific religion in this area. We don't see that many here in Oklahoma City, and so their unique way of dress and their culture. For me, I had not been around that culture, so for me that was it.
Yeah, I dug the clothes.
Okay.
So I dig it.
I thought it was funny driving around. We saw some loose horses running by.
Okay.
You see just cattle
Strange.
walking through the streets. It's just something you don't see here every day. So.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I see a cow walking through Mustang, but
Fair enough.
it's certainly not common.
I've seen a horse in the drive-through.
Yeah.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Wild horses down a busy street in the middle of India is
Right.
Yeah, it's
pretty
a little strange.
interesting.
Yeah. The traffic was something to behold.
Oh yeah.
Everything's a suggestion, so it's like the Wild West.
The things you can carry on a motorbike is very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huge children's cars that they drive around, mattresses.
Wow.
It's impressive.
Yeah. You've got a high standard to live up to, Jeremy, on
I
your
do.
scooter.
Yeah. Fun fact, I drive a moped around. Yeah, apparently I need to quit trying to borrow a truck to move mattresses.
No,
Just
you
do
don't.
You can
do it
apparently fit a
myself.
couch on there. I've
Yeah.
seen it.
Okay, what was the worst food you ate while you were there?
I didn't eat any bad food when I was there. I loved every minute of it.
Okay.
I broke my own rule of eating some cold stuff this time, and I think that was kind of the final straw from my GI system.
Okay.
It gave up the ghost for a couple days.
Mine was on the way back on the plane.
Yeah.
It's the worst green bean I ever had. Because I've turned out it was a serrano pepper that nobody gave me warning of. So I just put that thing in my mouth, took a huge bite out of it. And the drink cart on the plane, the service crew was about 20 aisles down, and they say that the hot level, what's the meter called?
Scoville.
That thing is 4 to 9 times hotter than a jalapeno.
Wow.
Why they serve that on a plane with minimal bathrooms, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
It
looking.
was the worst.
I
That was
was-
my worst thing.
I was looking at it and thinking, oh, it's a little shiny, but it looked like a green bean. I was prepared, and then the back of my seat bumped, and it was John. He said, "Do not consider putting that in your
Don't
mouth.
eat the
It's-
green
it's-
bean."
It's not a green bean." And I saw where that drink cart was away, and I was thinking, oh, that's a long time to
Yeah.
wait for a cold drink because it's not quick.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, so the things we've learned is that India needs the gospel. We did a lot of good work there, and don't eat the green bean on the way
Yeah,
back.
if it's a sole green bean on the plane, pass.
That's great. That's great. Well, that about wraps up our time. Thank you guys for being here and being a part of our podcast. Thank you for sharing the work that's going on in India. And church, be sure to be praying for these guys, praying for our continued efforts there and future trips. Thank you once again for listening to another episode of the 412 podcast. As always, if you would like to know more about FBC Mustang, go to fbcmustang.org. You can find us on all the social media websites, and you can also call the office anytime. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.